Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Viren and today we're here to talk about scaling and why I personally believe that it is a good thing to have it removed and how I think it would actually work. Now this is the final video I'm doing on scaling, however we do know that Cryptic have actually they've taken away scaling throughout some zones. Hopefully they're testing the waters, hopefully it's in their plans to actually remove scaling, and there are different ideas that they could do. So when it comes to dungeons and scaling, people say scaling was introduced because people were soloing stuff or because people were one-phasing stuff. And it is true, back before Mod 16, there were people that were soloing dungeons. You could literally count them on two hands. There wasn't many people doing it. But there also was people that were just one-phasing in places like Cradle. Now, I disagree with the fact that we should be able to one-phase everything, and I disagree with the fact that we should be able to solo the content, because we definitely shouldn't. That's the whole point of group content, group dungeons. That's why we have parties of 5, parties of 10, etc. However, when it comes to scaling, back in the day, when it comes to why people were soloing stuff, there is one reason, and it's not because scaling was never introduced. The reason people were soloing stuff is because of one very overpowered stat, and that was lifesteal. Lifesteal was one of the most overpowered broken stats in the game. I remember watching Northside on his Barbarian. He had stacked up a load of lifesteal, and he was basically soloing a lot of content. I remember how hard Yesterhill was for me, which is the 10-man heroic in Barovia. He soloed his way through that. But lifesteal, the more you did damage, the more life that you stole from the enemies, the more you healed yourself. And that's how people were building it. They were using a broken stat. So, scaling wasn't needed. A rework of the stat was needed. Now, when it comes to one-phasing things, is that because scaling wasn't a thing? No, it wasn't. If you remember back in the day, we were all stacking power. We had between 200,000 to 300,000 power on our DPSs. On top of that, because that was just base, but on top of that, we had a power share pally that stacked us with more power. We had a power share AC/DC, which stacked us with even more power. And then on top of all that, you had debuff classes like the Master of Flame and the DO, the DC/DO. And then you had buff classes. The Guardian Fighter had some immense buffs. And the HR is still a good buff class, actually. I do enjoy running with a buff HR. But on top of all of that, me, as a great weapon fighter back in the day, I had a thing called Slam, which was a daily, and it increased your damage done by 40%. There were so many buffs and debuffs applied on these bosses, or applied to you to make you stronger, that we were just one-phasing everything. However, if you look at the combat system now, because in Mod 16, the combat system got a giant rework, we were not doing 100 million crits anymore. In fact, people actually hated and left when the combat system changed, because they liked seeing high numbers. Now, if you ask some of the newer players, you know, after they've learned a lot about the game, they've probably seen a lot of endgamers complain as well. Do they want to reach endgame? And their attitude is, why? Why would I want to spend money? Why would I want to shortcut my way to endgame when a lot of content scaled already? And it is facts. I mean, why would you want to get endgame? What, so you can do Tiamat and Tom? Zariel, which is worthless. Crown of Caldegon, which I've heard is just worthless. It doesn't drop anything. So where's the incentive to actually get to endgame? There isn't one. And that is how a lot of early gamers are actually thinking about everything. And they obviously see endgamers complain as well. Now, for a fix, when it comes to scaling, take scaling out, of course, but add different tiers to the dungeons. Let's say you want to go in unscaled and you're at 40k. Then make a dungeon tier that allows 40k's to go in unscaled. I understand this could make a lot of work for the developers, so I don't expect it in Mod 24 or whatever, but if I'm 70k and I don't want to be scaled, I should be able to click the 70k tier of that dungeon. I understand that might be really, really difficult because obviously it's 70k, but right now your required item levels for the dungeons are absolute bullshit. And that is the truth. You try going Vault of Stars with a 45k. Let's see how you get on. Actually go in with a team of 45k. See how you get on. This is why I think the developers don't pay any attention. Yes, it's required item level. Scaled? Is Vault of Stars scaled? I don't even know. But even if it is scaled, you will not get through it with a 45k item level. So why not just make different tiers for each dungeon? I want to see my full power in every single dungeon. And this is where removing scaling needs to happen, in my opinion. You are targeting the early players, the new players. The new players hear everything from the end gamers, which means ignoring the end gamers is causing the end gamers to complain, which means the new players are believing all these complaints. Well, a lot of the complaints are fair, and that's why you're not basically getting any money from the new players. So all the player base has to be focused on. You cannot choose favorites. But when it comes to scaling, why scaling was introduced, they might say that it's so we don't one-phase things and we don't solo content. A lot of people play solo. A lot of people have severe social anxiety to where they just want to enjoy the game alone. So if someone has built their build for solo play and that's all they play alone, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because you're catering to them. They can actually make that. With scaling, it doesn't matter where we are, we're going to get one shot, beat down everything because we haven't got our full power. Now the current combat system, it might not work with scaling because we are severely nerfed in terms of defense. We cannot take hits. I understand that's how it's supposed to be. However, if that is how it's supposed to be, you need to calm down on all of these AoEs that you are giving all of these enemies. DPS are not designed to take a lot of damage. I get that. But you're introducing so many AoEs, we are bound to take some damage. I feel there's more AoEs sometimes than there is mechanics. You can call AoEs mechanics. I just think it's a cheap way of killing DPS that are unable to avoid it personally. That's just my opinion on it. I believe that about 90% of the player base do not want scaling in this game. And that's just from the people I've talked to. I've spoken zone chat to a lot of people. None of them want scaling. They don't see the point in it. It doesn't help them out. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you agree with anything I've said or do you disagree? Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new and you want to make your way back to the channel. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.